Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hot shot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Let me do it, Marv. She was my sister. Let me finish him.
You wasn't supposed to come down here, Wendy.
Oh, but I want to.
I'm sorry, kid, but I haven't even started with this creep. And I don't want you watching the rest. It'll give you nightmares.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show. I'm Stuart and completely full of cold.
I'm Andrew and completely cold-free.
I hate you. Yeah, this is not down to the Ice Bucket Challenges or anything like that, even though it was told to me by Mark, the brilliant leader of Following the Nerd, that he says, you might be the first victim of the Ice Bucket Challenge, which was quite lovely. Pleasant that, isn't it, getting a message from somebody after you've done the Ice Bucket Challenge. You might keel over after doing it. Lovely.
Yeah, be interesting. You'd be the first.
Yeah, well, you can check mine and your Ice Bucket Challenge on our Facebook feeds, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for movies. So on this week's show in the cinema section, we're looking at these films.
Luc Besson is back with Lucy, a sci-fi film where someone is using all of their brain power. We have horror based on a true story, supposedly, with Deliver Us from Evil. We have a sequel to Sin City in A Dame to Kill For. We have a big budget special effects disaster film in Into the Storm. And we have a small budget romance story with Daniel Radcliffe in What If?
And in the home release section, we're looking at these films.
We have the latest version of the animation version of Tarzan. We have Johnny Depp in computerized form in Transcendence. We have a very, very small independent film with Locke. And then we also have a small film with Arthur and Mike, which is an American film that's taken a long time to come over here. And then we end with a little horror film called Alien Abduction.
Yeah, the bargain basement kind of film. Make sure you check out our website, mondaymovieshow.co.uk, where Dalek Sex has just joined us in the live chat and he did a little piece for the site, so check that out. Even though it's in my name, he wrote it, I didn't. You can also...
That's the rebuttal one for the Turtles one, isn't it?
Yeah. You can also email us, mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com, facebook.com/mondaymovieshow, and Twitter @mondaymovieshow. I'm at Cryptic Tadpole, Andrew's at EHDVD. So let's kick things off as we normally do with some movie news.
Start off with a bit of sad news that Richard Attenborough has passed away on Sunday at the age of 90. Perhaps best known to people as John Hammond, the man responsible for bringing dinosaurs back to life in Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. Attenborough was the older brother of nature documentarist David Attenborough. He was also a director of movies, including the award-winning Gandhi in 1983.
Again, it's that instance where every single week we seem to be getting a high figure when it comes to movies passing away. Robin Williams was the story we were reporting on last week. This week it is Sir Richard Attenborough, it's a sad thing.
It's a shame. I mean, he had a good life to the age of 90, which is quite a long life, and I mean it's different to Robin Williams because that was more sort of tragic with the circumstances of his death. This is just passed away of natural causes, so it's not such a bad thing. I mean, it's just unfortunately things that will happen.
Yeah, he was a prolific person when it came to the world of film and also with TV as well. He wasn't one of those directors who was out to cause controversy, was he, with the stuff that he actually created? He always seemed to be a very stoic kind of person. So,
well, it was always kind of like that. It was like his character of John Hammond in Jurassic Park, the scene where he's talking about the flea circus and always just wanting to be an entertainer. That kind of summed him up. I'm pretty sure that's probably why the piece spoke to him.
Yeah, it is rare to have a director now which is very sort of like tries to keep away from the public rather than causing like uproar by directing something that'll shock you. Yeah. So he was never like that, and he will be missed. I don't know if he had any other project because, like you said, he did pass away at the age of 90. So yeah, I think he probably just wrapped it all up.
Yeah.
But it's sad to see him go.
Yeah.
My news is, and I will actually say sorry during tonight's show if you can't understand me, because I can people barely understood me at work today, so...
What?
Exactly. According to The Wrap, Steven Spielberg is developing a TV series based on the 2002 film Minority Report. The script will be handled by Godzilla's Max Borstein and will focus on the pre-crime unit.
I had an idea for this a little while ago. I was thinking, why didn't they do that? I thought that would be a brilliant idea to actually see kind of like the 5 years leading up to the movie, so we can see sort of them starting out with normal police and the character. They'd have to have the same character played by Tom Cruise, so they wouldn't get him for the series. But to have the character of Anderton played, starting off with him being a cop and then just being sort of brought into this new division of the pre-crime thing and becoming sort of the lead in that, because I think that would work really well as a series.
Yeah, from what I've read up about it, this says that they're not going to go with Tom Cruise's character from the film. They're going to go with a slightly different take on it.
I wish they would go with his character, because I really did think that would be a great setup.
Yeah, it would have, but it's an interesting premise. It's a one that they definitely probably can expand on from the film, rather than it just being, they've got a couple of ideas. Like, for instance, the Evil Dead TV series that was announced. I don't know where they're going to go with that, because I don't think that there isn't much of a universe there to expand on with the Necronomicon, etc. But with Minority Report, it's a much more open world, and you can have each week you could just centre it around a crime happening. And it would still be, it would be the typical crime series that we get on it, but with more of a sci-fi twist to it.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, with like you said, the Evil Dead series, I don't know how that's going to work either. Be interesting, but I don't see that. I don't have as much enthusiasm for that as I do for a Minority Report one.
To be honest, I'm exactly the same, even though I'm sort of like a big Evil Dead fan. The Freddy Alvarez film, with an exception though. David Yates is in talks to direct the Harry Potter spin-off Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, with J.K. Rowling doing the screenwriting job on her own book. That'll be the first time she's actually done that. The book/film will be set around 70 years before the Harry Potter series and will be centred on Newt's supernatural adventures.
I'm not so hyped about this, to be honest. I will see it probably when it comes out, because I've seen the Harry Potter films, but I'm not. This doesn't really mean anything to me.
Yeah, it just seems to be that J.K. Rowling hasn't found anything that she can latch onto after doing Harry Potter, and it makes you wonder, is that it? Was J.K. Rowling a one-hit wonder when it came to the universe of Harry Potter? And can she actually do anything else apart from the Potter series? And so I'm sort of like with you.
Although I'm looking forward to seeing if she comes up with something else, because I like to see, like, I'm going to use this as an example, but I know you and lots of other people will rebuttal this, but things like with Stephanie Meyer and Twilight, and then going on to The Host, because I liked The Host.
Yeah, you know what I felt about The Host. I hated it. But
I
wonder,
the kind of response you'd give, yeah.
I would have came back with the argument is, I wonder if The Host actually played better to the Twilight audience. If you liked the Twilight series, you would have liked The Host, but I don't think that was the case, because you didn't much like the Twilight series, to be honest, did you?
Well, I didn't so much not like them as just find them particularly bland, and it's this whole thing of when you adapt a book, there should be so much in a book that the film is bursting at the seams, and yet none of the Twilight films was bursting at the seams. They all felt very blasé. And that either means there's not a lot in the book, or they're not been well adapted from the book. And in The Host, there was a lot in there. I felt there was a lot in The Host that there wasn't in the Twilight film. So that's why I thought it was a lot better.
Yeah, a lot of tosh. According to The Wrap, Josh Boone, the director of The Fault in Our Stars, is in line to direct The Vampire Lestat. This follows the acquisition of all of Anne Rice's novels by Universal and Image Entertainment. Instead of remaking Rice's famous novel Interview with a Vampire, it seems that Universal want to go with The Vampire Lestat instead.
I'm looking forward to this series. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not, because I do think that Tom Cruise brought a lot to that when he played the role in Vampire Diaries, and there wasn't that brought to it by Stuart Townsend when he played the same character in the follow-up one.
Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, although I did enjoy Queen of the Damned, it's not anywhere near the same level as Vampire, as Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah, you said The Vampire Diaries. Isn't that a TV programme on ATV or something?
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing this, but I mean, it's one of the things that there are people who hate Tom Cruise out there, but you've got to admit, any film that he's in, he really gives it all in his performance, and so they need to have someone else in this playing the same character that's going to be giving it their all.
I'm glad though that they didn't decide to go straight with a remake of Interview with the Vampire and went with the Vampire Lestat instead, because it'll be like a third one tackling Anne Rice's novels rather than remaking Interview with the Vampire. I'm glad that they've actually gone with the Vampire Lestat, so centered around Lestat's character properly. Again, exploring him for the third time, but at least it's not a remake. Mm-hmm. According to you won't care about this one. I don't actually, to be honest, but it's a slow news week. According to an interview with Fangoria Legends, Rob Zombie has said that he would love to do a Devil's Reject sequel or prequel, despite the Spaulding family meeting their maker at the end of the Devil's Reject. In other words, they died.
You're right. I don't care about that one.
Exactly. I like the Devil's Reject. I think the Devil's Rejects was a good film. House for the Thousand Corpses is a very sort of like grindy kind of nasty movie. And the Devil's Rejects is Rob Zombie's best movie. Don't know how he's...
Is that not the one that has Paris Hilton being decapitated or something in it?
No.
No.
I don't know how he's going to manage to do a sequel to something where the lead family in the Devil's Rejects gets killed at the end. They get shot by lots of police officers.
They'll get brought back as some kind of undead thing, won't they?
Yeah, it'll be more like 2001 Maniacs. Yeah, and these two I've just decided to meld together because it's two movie franchises getting turned into a TV series. But a TV series of Shutter Island has been ordered by HBO, with the first episode set.
Film yet.
With the first episode set to be directed by Martin Scorsese. I've seen the film. It's a very strange movie. It's got an interesting twist to it, but it's a very strange one, and it'll make an interesting TV series because there is a sort of like a world there where it could explore the mental asylum that Leonardo DiCaprio's character goes to. So it'll be interesting to explore that asylum. I don't think it'll actually last more than one series though, because the Omen TV series has been given 6 episodes by Lifetime without the need of a pilot. So they've actually greenlit a series without a pilot being shown.
Yeah, I'm not that bothered about that one either. But that's horror, so that's probably...
Yeah, and it's called Damien.
Yeah.
So it's going to be called Damien. And also there's a new trailer right there for the new Amityville film, which actually looks pretty decent. From the people behind Insidious and Sinister, it looks pretty decent. You're gonna be dragged to see lots of horror over the next year or so, aren't you? Over the next while. So I'm guessing you're probably going to be dragged to see As Above, So Below.
Well, I kind of said I wouldn't see that, but I've agreed I'm going to have to go and see Deliver Us From Evil, which you're reviewing later on. So we'll see. Yeah,
we'll get on to As Above, So Below next week because I can't wait for that. But let's go straight into the UK box office top 10. So number 10 is Hercules,
which I really enjoyed. I thought it was a lot better than I think some of the people have been giving it credit for, especially because it's directed by Brett Ratner, who is a hack director. I'm sorry, but he is. He doesn't really know how to put this kind of film together normally, and yet here I was blown away by just how decent and fun and enjoyable it is. It's not brilliant, but it's well above his standard of directing and well above his standard of kind of film that you get. And I thought it was really well done, and I liked the film from start to finish. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good enough movie. It's not like an out-and-out brilliant kind of action-adventure film, but considering that the Hercules series hasn't been tackled very well, I think Brett Ratner got it right with the casting. I think there was enough cheese in there to see you through the 90 minutes of the movie itself. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was actually pretty decent as Hercules, so they got the casting right, and that's what you need. You need the casting correct for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I also think it was really well done. It never had any problems with pacing. It didn't stop and start and stop and start. It went all the way through, which is, again, a hard thing to pull off.
Especially for Brett Ratner. Number 9 is a new entry for Hector in the Search for Happiness,
which I enjoyed. It has got its problems. It wants to be Walter Mitty, the Secret Life of Walter Mitty, but it's got a central character who is even more annoying, especially in the first hour of the film, and is basically going on a search for happiness to find out what makes people happy so he can find out if he can be happy. And it basically is, you kind of want to really slap the main character because you're kind of going, what are you complaining about? Because he has a good life and that's it. And it's just honestly annoying. And then it has this weird thing where it kind of changes tone in the last half of the film, and then it kind of goes all over the place, and it's enjoyable, it's okay, but it feels like a mess. It's really kind of all over the place.
At number 8 is The Nut Job.
I still haven't seen this yet.
I wish I could have actually said that it was still okay, but no, it's not. It's rubbish. It is. There was a reviewer who stood in for the reviews that we listened to on a popular radio station, Robbie Collins, who stood in for them over the last couple of weeks. And he sort of like did ring the alarm bells in my brain when he mentioned last week that this summer, when it comes to kids' films, they've been lacking, which I completely agree with, especially in the animation side of it, because there is one film which sort of like kicked off the blockbuster season, which I'm going to be reviewing in the DVD section, which is god awful.
Which I look forward to hearing your review of. Yes, you remember mine. I think it's probably the last time I gave a rant on the show.
Yeah, I can't be bothered with a rant. But The Nut Job does not fall in the category of being god awful, but it doesn't push the animation movie forward at all. It's lacking in a lot of things. It's lacking in a decent characters. It's lacking in a decent storyline. It's lacking in humor. It's lacking in decent animation. It just lacks full stop. Number 7 is Planes 2 Fire and Rescue.
And talking of lacking animation, I mean, the first Planes was just awful. The second Planes is just as bad. It has a couple of moments here and there where the animation is quite impressive, but the rest of it is just horrible. It doesn't seem like it had much of a script. It doesn't have anything funny in it. It just is completely devoid of that feel of being a Disney animation. It's just horrible.
There's one or two scenes where it looks quite nice, but that's about it. It's vapid. It's a vapid thing that only should have existed on DVD.
It's the thing of gone are the days of Disney and Pixar doing things. I mean, this is just Disney on their own. It's not Pixar, but it's gone are the days of things like Toy Story, where you've got something that's magical and wondrous for both kids and adults. And not only that, it's also funny as well for both kids and adults. This isn't even funny for kids. It's not even funny for adults at all. It's just not funny at all altogether.
Yeah, we'll get onto an animated film which isn't actually meant to be funny, but it shows you kids' animation film in a different light. And Planes 2, like I said, it is one of those direct-to-DVD ones. It should have been.
Yeah.
And at number 6 is The Secret Cinema Back to the Future.
Which, I mean, it's the Secret Cinema thing is doing really well because of the price of the tickets, which are quite expensive. That's why it's going into the top 10. It was in there last week, in there this week. It's probably going to be in there next week. I think it's on for something like 4 or 5 weeks. So it's going to hang around. But, I mean, it's Back to the Future. If you haven't seen it, do what we said last week. Go out and get the DVDs or the Blu-rays, because you'd actually get, I think some places were selling the DVD box set for £5. 3 films for £5.
Actually go out and buy the Blu-ray, because supposedly tickets for this are around about £50 each.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculously overpriced, considering I know what it is. It has like 4 hours before the film itself, where it supposedly takes elements from the movie and puts you into that kind of into the film experience, and then you've got the film itself. But £50 is a lot to ask for that kind of experience.
Yeah.
At number 5 is How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Probably the best animated film of the year, and I expect will probably be the best animated film until some point next year when we get something decent too. It's a great sequel. The animation is absolutely fantastic, even better than the first one. The story is really good. It's odd as well. It's a PG, and some people have said that it's been a bit scary for kids, but I didn't really think it was that scary. It is certainly an emotional film because of certain things that happen in it, but it is a very, very amazing example of what you can do well when you really put your heart and soul into animation, and what the other animated films this year have completely failed at.
Yeah, it's a dark animated film than what's actually been this year. I likened it to the films of last year. So when we got Paranorman and Rise of the Guardians, so I likened it to that one, and it would have fit in brilliantly with those films from last year. Frankenweenie was the other one. I was trying to think of what it was last week, but yeah, it would have fit in perfectly with that one, because it is slightly more darker than what we expect when it comes to kids animated films, which I loved the fact that they were so brave to do that, and look how much it's taken, over £20 million, which is brilliant for it.
And it's still in the top 5.
Yep. At number 4 is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, a really great sequel. It's as good as the first one, if not maybe a little bit more impressive, because of the fact of the number of motion capture performances that's gone into it. That's kind of half of the film now, and it's got some really good sort of comparisons of the human characters and the ape characters. It's quite a sort of a tense film, and it's a good, worthy sequel. And I look forward to seeing what they do with the next one, because if they can keep it at that kind of level, it's going to be a really great franchise.
Yeah, and Dalek's X just in the live chat there said Lego movie. We'll see at the end of the year because I think I'm going to be in charge of the best animated film category when we do our awards, and so we'll just see. I'm not going to be biased neither, so I don't think it's going to be a
Studio Ghibli, yeah.
Yeah, don't think, even though the trailer for the Tale of Princess Kaguya is absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful. That trailer is amazing for what Sir Takahata has actually done with that film. I don't think we'll actually get it over here this year. So I'm not going to be biased. I will actually look at them properly, so we'll see by the end of the year. But Lego Movie is in contention. It's definitely in contention.
Yeah.
And number 3 is a new entry for the Expendables 3.
Which is... Here's the thing with it. The Expendables is a film series which was... It knew that it was ridiculous and stupid. It knew it was a big action throwback to the 80s films, which starred, obviously, Sylvester Stallone and others that reappear in the films. And that's the thing that makes it the first two fun and enjoyable. You know that, you're going into it and that's it. But with the third one, it tries to bring in new blood, new characters that are not actors that are known for being in action films. Some of them aren't even known at all. And it just kind of doesn't have that classiness to it that the others did. And also it has a problem where you have things in it basically where there's action scenes that are going on which aren't especially well edited. They're overly long and they don't kind of feel realistic. They feel more blockbustered up than the other films, and so because of that it doesn't have that punch to it, which it really is kind of a hollow film compared to the others. And it's just a shame because it was looking like it was going to be another one that I was going to enjoy like the others, and I just found it kind of shallow.
Yeah, Dalek in the live chat says, "Tell me it's better than number 2," but that's subjectual. If you didn't like number 2, then I think you probably if you didn't like the first 2, I think you might see this as a different turn to the Expendables film, and you might like this one better. I didn't like the first 2. I thought this one is the stronger one out of the 3, but that's down to my opinion. Yeah. Even though I still think the film itself is pretty much tosh, to be honest.
We have very odd opposite opinions this, because you like this one more than the first 2, but I like the first 2 more than this one. So, I mean, take that as you will. If you like the first 2, maybe you'll have the same opinion as me. If you don't like the first 2, maybe you'll have the same opinion as Stuart.
Yeah, it's because of the fact that I just felt like we'd have already seen it in the first 2 films relating to the 80s action stars. They needed to take it in a different direction because it just would have just felt like 3 movies, which is the same thing. What I find interesting...
fine with that, though.
But I wouldn't have. What I find interesting is you've got the female spin-off happening, the Expendables, and now there's rumoured to be a horror spin-off as well. There's a director looking into getting some of the Scream Queens from the 80s, which include Heather Langenkamp, in it, and it's going to be centering around those Scream Queens getting tormented by the horror icons who they went up against in their films. Now, if they manage to do that, it's going to take a hell of a lot to actually speak to the different studios to try and get that together, considering how difficult it was to get movies like Freddy vs. Jason off the ground.
Yeah.
So I will pat the person majorly on the back if they manage to pull that off. We'll see, though. At number 2 is the biggest blockbuster of the summer so far, is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, which just this week in the US also went back straight to the number 1 point as well. I mean, I think it's the first film to do that in a while. It's gone out of the number 1 spot and gone back to it after 4 weeks. And it deserves to, because it's fantastic. It's brilliant. It's a great kind of... It is the modern Star Wars. It's that big thing of a science fiction epic with characters in it that you kind of get into and you love, and you come to the end of it and you've had a great time, and it's funny and got heart to it.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to disagree when we're doing our end of year list and find out that this is in the top 10 somewhere. Because it's going to be an easy one, that one, to put in the top 10.
It's not going to be the top of the list, but it will be in the list for sure.
It's in my top 5 easily. It's easily made my top 5. Unlike the film at number 1, which is The In-Betweeners 2.
Yeah, which I still haven't seen, and I probably won't see.
Yeah, it won't make my bottom 10, like The In-Betweeners movie made my bottom 10 of that year, because it isn't as bad as The In-Betweeners, and I've seen many more horrible films this year than The In-Betweeners 2.
Actually, there's something I wanted to ask about it, because I heard something about it said about the other day. Is it... Because The In-Betweeners was like a big screen version of the show. because I didn't like the show, I didn't like the film, but I've heard that the second one is a lot more that's actually like a separate film with the characters and not just like an episode of the film stretched out to an hour and a half.
Well, if the first film was a big screen version of the TV show, this is a big screen version of the first film. That sounds slightly strange, that, but it is. It's just taking the first film, putting it on a bigger scale, and relocating it to Australia instead. It has the same morose, stupid sex jokes for 90% of the film, and you just want to tell them to shut up and just go back to just them four having proper conversations with each other. That's when, in my opinion, the film works, and it's an interesting film in that instance. When it gets to the sex jokes, it just becomes so monotonous and boring. It's like you're sitting and listening to four 15-year-olds having a conversation. That's all it is. It's four 15-year-olds having a conversation for 90 minutes, considering that now they are adults, which are over the age of 25 and got children and they're married. It's really weird to see actors like that regressing back to what they were like when they were 15. It's not funny, and I think it should be avoided, even though it's got 22 million in the bank already.
Yeah.
Right, let's get on to our first review of the night.
Let's go to Luc Besson's Lucy, which stars Scarlett Johansson as Lucy, who is, at the start of the movie, we're introduced to her with her sort of boyfriend, as you would say. She's there with him. He's trying to sort of convince her to go in to drop off this case for her in a hotel somewhere in Hong Kong. She's there and she doesn't really want to. He ends up handcuffing it to her wrist, so she's got no choice. She goes in there, finds herself stuck in a hotel room with a bunch of men, and where she ultimately ends up being made to open this briefcase. It's got these weird-looking blue drugs inside it, these 4 pouches of drugs, which she then is offered a job, doesn't really want to accept, but is knocked out and wakes up to find out that they've actually put the drugs inside her. Goes and sort of gets on the plane that they've given her, finding herself sort of stuck and watched with no option other than to just go along with it. When she gets to her destination, though, she is sort of taken by the group of men who recover her. She's kind of a bit manhandled, she's beaten up a bit, which results in this package leaking inside her, which then starts having a weird effect, and that it starts unlocking parts of her brain. There's this whole thing in the film with Morgan Freeman's character, who plays a professor, who we see sort of bits him at the same time going on when he's in France at some kind of a summit meeting. He's explaining about his theory about the whole thing of how humans only use 10% of their brain, and then all of a sudden Lucy has an experience where she starts to go up with her intelligence and go up with her numbers of her brain usage, going up, flashing up on the screen every now and again, telling us that she's at 10%, 20%, 30%, and so on. And so, looking to find out what's going to happen with her because of the fact no one knows, she gets in touch with him to see if she can figure out what's going on and find some way to basically survive. Here's a clip.
Yes?
Professor Norman, my name's Lucy. I just read all your research on the human brain. We need to meet.
All of my research? Well, I'm very flattered, young lady, but I find that hard to believe.
I read your theory on the use of the brain's capacity. It's a little rudimentary, but you're on the right track.
Thank you.
I absorbed a large quantity of synthetic CPH4 that will allow me to use 100% of my cerebral capacity. Right now I'm at 28%. And what she wrote is true. Once the brain reaches 20%, it opens up.
You can control your own metabolism?
Yes. Also, I can control magnetic and electric waves, television, telephone, radio.
That's amazing.
So, here's the thing with Lucy. It's been advertised, obviously being a Luc Besson film, it's got the usual kind of trailer and the look of it and the action little bits here and there that show it off to be the kind of thing that you've come to expect from Luc Besson, but with this, albeit not entirely original, but different twist with the sci-fi element. And the thing of it is that it's kind of been missold. It isn't the typical kind of Luc Besson film that we see. It does have a strong sci-fi element to it. It does have a couple of little action sequences, but they're not really action sequences. They are sci-fi sequences. And it's a thing of all the way through this, I was thinking, this is kind of a bit like something like what Danny Boyle did with Sunshine, in that it's a really good science fiction film. I was really enjoying it, really getting into it, but it had been missold as being something other than a science fiction film. And it's a very, very cerebral science fiction film. It does have this whole thing of being a bit more smarter than I think the audience will expect with it. But the problem is that then halfway through the film, it decides to not try and be as smart and to try doing the typical Luc Besson thing, and try and throw in these weird, amazing sort of kind of action sequences and these bizarre things happening, without really explaining why or really trying to show what the point of it is. There's also this thing throughout it as well that it keeps using these kind of, well, like flashcards to tell you things over the film. And I really like some of these. At the start of it, there's one basically where at the beginning, when Scarlett Johansson's character's being trying to be convinced to go in to drop off this briefcase, you can see all the shots of everything. You see a picture at one point of a mouse approaching a mousetrap. You see a wildebeest or something like that being attacked by lions in Africa, as like a whole thing of being, you know, trapped as a predator and stuff like that. And that kind of little things, which is a little bit funny but not meant to be, I don't believe, kind of throws things off as well. And it's kind of like being clubbed over the head with a blunt instrument, where it really should take some finesse and just have a quick flash. It doesn't need to have a full 10 seconds of this being shown. You just need a quick flash to go, oh, what's that? And you get an idea what the person's thinking and what they're feeling. There's also this weird thing as well, that as it goes further and further, you get this flashcard that says 10%, 20%, 30%, 40% as it goes on. And I didn't feel that was necessary. I thought that was very much like the film trying to dumb itself down unnecessarily. So as a result, the film ends up being a bit mismatched, a bit on the uneven side, because it could have been very, very smart science fiction had it lived up to its potential. But as it is, it's kind of like a damp squid. It goes off and never really, really reaches its potential.
See, the way I found it is, I completely agree with the flashcard stuff. It reminded me like it was Luc Besson looking at something that Terrence Malick would do and thinking, oh, I'm that smart, I can do that. When unfortunately that you don't want to see that, because it has nothing to do with the film itself, apart from when Morgan Freeman is explaining what would happen if we used more than 10% of our brain, which is what we use. Explain that dolphins use 20% of their brain and they're the most intelligent creatures on the planet. When he's explaining that, you're sort of like, it could be part of his presentation when you see the first humans in ape form smashing off rocks and stuff like that, but it wasn't needed in scenes when she's in the foyer of the hotel and you'll see a wildebeest being attacked. It was just pointless. It was very disjointed from the film. It also, I thought that the film itself was trying to think that it was very smart, when in fact it wasn't, because the premise itself is very easy to follow, but it was trying to complicate itself by being too intellectual. It didn't work for the film. Even though the film itself is not bad, it's actually got some really interesting moments, and Scarlett Johansson's on sort of like automaton kind of mode. Because once the drugs kick into her system, and once she starts to lose humanity, after going past the 10% mark, when she gets to the 20%, 30%, when her body starts to change, and she's able to manipulate things like radio waves and televisions and herself, her appearance, and any kind of animal, that's when the film itself just became a bit stoic. And that's when our character went from being human to being a robot, which makes you think, do we need to actually explore the possibility of unlocking more of our brain, when in fact we're fine the way we are, considering what we've managed to achieve? We've managed to achieve flight to the moon. We've managed to achieve cracking an atom, things like that, with just using 10% of our brain. Are we sure we ever want to explore the ability of unlocking more than that? And this movie proves that we shouldn't, because it's just disastrous for us if we did.
I get that as well. I did like that. There was one scene in it when I was thinking, because she partners up with this French cop at one point, and you're kind of thinking, well, what does she need him for? And it addresses that, because she turns to him and basically kisses him and he says, why am I here? And she goes, to help me remember. So, you know, it's that kind of things. I did like those little things in there, but it just wasn't enough of that human element there.
It's sort of like to help her try and remember, yet she still was very robotic-like. It was like he had a sidekick, but sort of like he became the sidekick and followed exactly what she was doing. Which, if you saw somebody like that, you would never do that. You would never follow exactly that. You would run in the opposite direction. So it's Dalek, I know on the live chat, of course dolphins can use 20%. They don't even have to play Flappy Bird.
No, and that is even also mentioned about dolphins in there as well. So it does show that they've tried to look into this, at least. They've not just gone completely sci-fi and made it up.
Yeah, it's a very strange movie. It's like if Besson looked at a Salvador Dali painting and just thought, let's do a Salvador Dali painting if it was transcribed by Nietzsche, and just him going mad with Terrence Malick bits into it as well. It's a very strange movie, and it passes 90 minutes by, but when it gets to the end, it gets ridiculous.
Yeah, I did also feel as well that it suddenly ended, and I was kind of like, where's the ending?
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Considering when you find out what happens when a human brain can reach 100%, yeah, that's strange. That's very strange. Just think of the word omnipotent.
Omnipotent, you mean?
Yeah, I've got a cold. Leave me alone. Right, next up is Deliver Us from Evil from director Scott Derrickson, who did Sinister and The Exorcism of Emily Rose. This sentence, it's one of those stupid, based on a true story or based on true events. The kind of thing that when you see attached to a horror film, you just giggle because you realise, yeah, this can't happen. So why would it happen? It stars Eric Bana, who plays a detective called Ralph Sarchi, and it is actually based on a case that he investigated, which involves 3 soldiers who have come back from Iraq, who broke into this area and discovered something which they shouldn't have discovered. They've now come back to America and have managed to manipulate people or infect people with what they've been infected with and change the way they are. And so it centres around on the detective of Ralph Sarchi, who get called out to a case which involves a baby found dead in an alleyway. He then uncovers somebody else who's connected to this case, which involves a woman who supposedly threw her 2-year-old child into the pen of a lion's den. He gets the help from a priest who's played by Edgar Ramirez to try and see if he can help him out with this when he finds out that it is down to possession. And he goes to visit the girl in prison after she's been completely possessed, supposedly by a demon, with the help of the priest. Here's a clip.
Ralph Sarchi, 4-6 Precinct. I'm here to talk to Jane Crenna.
Sorry, but that patient is heavily medicated.
It's all right, Doctor. He's with me.
Hey, Father. Thanks for coming.
All right, 10 minutes.
What is this place?
The isolation floor. Maximum security. Upstairs is for the disturbed. Down here is for the dangerous and the deranged. Jane, we got a visitor.
Hello, Jane. Do you know a man named Santino? That's right. Mick Santino. Why'd you go visit him at the zoo? He had a message for you. Jane, what was the message Santino had for you? You speak Latin, huh? What do you think of this?
So ultimately, there is more than meets the eye to just what he thinks is a very basic case by finding this dead baby in the alleyway to what actually is happening. Now, the thing with Deliver Us from Evil is Scott Derrickson knows how to direct these possession films. He has done The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and he's done Sinister. In Sinister, it was about a film that was possessed. With this one, I think it's his weakest out of his 3. Because it just felt like in the middle it sags. It just sags a lot. There are moments in the movie where it shows its potential. When you do get to the Lion's Den area where the 2-year-old boy was thrown into it, when you find out it involved one of the soldiers from Iraq, and the way he's acting when they look over the footage of what happened in that in the Lion's Den itself, it's very strange. And so you get your typical jump bits and something that never originally happened there, but only Eric Bana's character can see it. And then you start to realise that Derrickson is going down typical horror cliche route. And he follows that to a T. Unlike with Sinister and The Exorcism of Emily Rose, he does his own spin on it. And this one, it feels like he's just copying what's happened before in movies very similar to this. Eric Bana is decent in the movie. He plays a character who's sort of like detached from his family after an event that's happened to him, and considering what some of the cases that he investigates, you can see why. And so it's a very typical character, and the whole film itself just feels very similar to what we've seen before. I'm not saying it's bad, because it's not bad, but it's just very average in a movie that could have been much better than it is, considering the director behind it and the idea that it had.
Because I've agreed I'm going to have to go and see this, but I just want to know, make sure it doesn't have any of these, like, all of a sudden jumps in it, does it? I hate those kind of things.
Unfortunately, you're going to have to suffer through those kind of things. So Derrickson does that in his movies. If you've watched Sinister, which I don't know if you've seen Sinister.
No, I haven't, no.
Yeah, there's a scene involving a cardboard box in Sinister, which is a big bang kind of jump scare. And there's a couple of little jump scares in The Exorcism of Emily Rose. You are going to have to go through a jump scare or two in Deliver Us from Evil. I tried to help you out a little bit with the clip there, because there is a jump scare which it leads up to. That clip leads up to. So I've given you a full warning on that case, but I'm not going to tell you when the other few jump scares happen, because there is one or two more in the film.
Okay.
And you're going to hate your other half for taking you to see it. Not as much as if she takes you to see As Above, So Below, though, considering that looks like The Descent, but with more insanity to it. But we'll see.
Okay, I'm going to go through to Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, which technically just came out today, on Monday. It's one of these ones that's getting a preview releases before it actually technically comes out on Friday.
We're having one of the first audio reviews of this as well, so.
We don't have a clip, unfortunately, because a lot of the clips that are out are just basically people punching each other and stuff. But it's written and directed by Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez, who worked together on the first one. It's basically a return to the city of Sin City, in which you have some of the same characters and additions of some new characters. You have returning in there Mickey Rourke as Marv. You have Jessica Alba as Nancy. You have Josh Brolin playing Dwight, which was in the previous film played by Clive Owen. You have people like Rosario Dawson returning as Gail. You have new characters, new additions to the cast, including Ava Green as Ava, and you also have Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Johnny. But all of these stories are sort of all these different characters that you have, obviously, in these different stories that are connected somewhat, but they're each sort of their own separate stories. And some of them, in some ways, are connected with elements from the first film as well. And also then some of them are completely separate, but have, obviously, characters in them that appear in each of the other ones. And it's kind of more of the same as you had with the first Sin City. But the thing is that with it, it's been more sort of the action has been more punched up in it. There's been more of the sort of the typical cheesy, horrible dialogue you get in them, but it's kind of people just chewing scenery. You have the whole thing of it being shot with the black and white style, and then obviously weird things occasionally being entered in colour. And it is basically more the same, but it doesn't have that. It just doesn't have the substance of the first film. It's kind of lacking in that department. There's not a problem with any of the performances, because the performances are playing it fine. It's similar kind of performances there were in the first film, but it's just a case of that you have problems with one of the things that is 3D, because the first one was done before 3D was brought back by Avatar. This one has had 3D added to it and done. I don't know if it was filmed in 3D or not. The 3D is actually pretty good, but it has the unfortunate side effect of making it look so much more like it's just on green screen. And the backgrounds, it doesn't look like they're actually there in front of the backgrounds. It looks like the backgrounds have obviously been added in background special effects. So it's kind of a question of whether or not you want to see it in 3D, because it is decent 3D. It's not 3D that you're going, oh, it's not necessary, because there's a lot of the whole thing of elements, things like snow falling and the blood splatter sort of things like that are quite well done. But it really is, I think it's going to be a thing that's really for just fans of the first one, and they're probably going to see it and come out and go, well, it was okay, but not as good as the first one, unfortunately. And the thing that's really, really doesn't help is the fact that the storylines, in order to bring back some of the characters that we did see die in the first film, and that's not a spoiler because I'm not going to say who, but we see characters in here that died in the first film, and some of them we're seeing that are ghosts, and some of them we're seeing because it's set before the story that happened in the first film. And the stories are all over the place, taking different places in time. So it feels like Sin City and a half. It's the add-ons, it's the extra bits. It's kind of, they're not, as much as they're not deleted scenes, it feels like Sin City, the deleted story bits that we've added on extra so we can make a second film.
Does it feel more like a portmanteau kind of movie? Sort of things like the VHSs, when you've got when people discover in VHS, when they discover the tapes and they watch them, there's sort of like a storyline which interleaves between each segment. Does it feel more like that rather than the way Sin City was? Because even though in Sin City it is about a couple of different stories, they are properly tied together with a proper coherence to it.
No, it doesn't feel like that, because it does feel like that in regards to the first film, that there are all these different stories, that they are connected. But the thing is, if you haven't seen the first film, there's things and characters and such and things going on in the second film that you might not get. You wouldn't know the connections because of the fact you don't know who this character was in the first film, what they went through there, because some of it takes place afterwards, and then also some of it takes place before, and you don't have a bearing then of, well, after this bit that happens, what you've already seen in the first one. So it's, you need to have seen the first one to really get half of the things that happen in the second one.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask that. Do you need to have seen the first one? Do you think that's the fact that's harmed the film itself? Because the fact that you need to see the first one, and the gap between the first one and this one is such a big gap that in the US box office it only went in at number 8.
Yeah, I don't know if that might be something to do with that. I mean, it might be because I think it's got the same sort of early previews over there, because I saw this at a preview where it showed the first one as well, so I saw the two back to back, and it was better and enjoyable because of that. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the film, but as an overall film, it's not great without the first film. It kind of has elements, especially certain things to do with a couple of the characters. You'd be lost as to why they are like that. You go, well, why is that character like that? And without seeing the first film, you have no idea.
Did it make you appreciate the first film more? Because I know you didn't like the first film as much as I do.
It did, but I don't know if that's just because I saw the first film. I hadn't seen the first film at the cinema, whereas now I saw it at the cinema, although it was misprojected for the first 10 minutes.
And that must have been a sore bum that you had at the end of it after seeing both films.
Surprisingly not, although the first film did feel very much longer than I remember it being.
Yeah, it is about 2 hours long, so yeah. It is a quite long film.
The second film's only an hour and 40 minutes, and it kind of feels like maybe it's, like I said, it feels like it's the off-cuts. It doesn't really feel, apart from a couple of bits, as if it's really its own thing.
So like what the Jackass series did with Jackass 2.5 and 3.5?
Yes.
And do you think that this film should have been out much more earlier than what it is released now? So it should have been released like maybe a few years after Sin City rather than nearly 10 years?
Yeah, well, it could have been. I mean, the thing is, the only thing that kind of makes it stand out more is the fact that there's certain things in it, like the credit sequences are done with the flashy camera movements around certain things, and it's, it's all CG'd animation bits and stuff like that for the credits and things, whereas in the original it was just kind of like screen cards that were used, because of the fact that at the time that stuff didn't exist really, or was too expensive because the original film was made on a very small budget.
Yeah. Okay, then next up is Into the Storm. It's I wouldn't say it's a big budget disaster movie, because the budget on this is only $60 million. I know I'm saying only $60 million, which is the same around about the budget of the Lego Movie. But considering that the disaster movies need big, huge, massive budgets, look at The Day After Tomorrow, and you realise that $60 million isn't a lot when considering the scales of movies like this. It's directed by Stephen Quayle. And it sort of like has three different storylines which interleave fully into one, centered around three different groups of people. You've got Richard Armitage in the movie, who plays Gary, who plays a deputy head teacher who lives with his two sons, and he's preparing for graduation of the class that's getting graduated. One of his sons is supposedly filming it. However, he gets sidetracked by helping out a girl who he fancies at school with the project. You've also got this documentary crew who have been shooting for the last few months to try and capture some tornadoes, but they've had no luck. Every single time when they get to an area, the tornadoes isn't there, and one of the characters is played by Sarah Wayne Callis, who you'll have seen in Prison Break and in The Walking Dead. I nearly said The Evil Dead there. Different kind of thing if that was the case, but yeah, she's a meteorologist who she studied all of this kind of thing for a thesis, and she knows how to supposedly track down tornadoes and twisters, but unfortunately her and the TV crew that she's with seems to miss this. And then you've got the comedy side of it, which is these two guys who were thinking that whatever we shoot on these small little cameras we'll put on YouTube and it'll make us famous. And so interleaving all of these characters together, you've got a huge massive giant twister which is about to hit their town and turn everything onto their head. Here's a clip which involves two of the groups of people together.
What's happening up top, kid? I got nothing up here, just clouds. Wait, there it is, right there on the left. Are you seeing this? Yeah, I got it.
We got movement to the northeast.
Hey, guys, it's splitting. We're gonna have another funnel.
Hey, something's happening behind us. There's another one. There's one to our right. 2. There's 3. 4. They're everywhere.
We have multiple vortices touching down.
Pete, these systems are too erratic. We gotta get out of here.
Oh my God, no.
Right, the thing with Into the Storm is it's billed as a found footage movie, and it's not. It's not a found footage movie. It's in the style of Chronicle. Now, I argued that Chronicle is not a found footage film because the footage itself is never found.
And I agree that it is. It's shot in that style.
Yeah, it's in the style of a found footage movie. That does not make it a found footage film, because the whole point of calling a movie found footage is if the footage that was shot was found. And in something like Chronicle, it was never found. So it's shot on that viewpoint, but it's not a found footage movie. That's the same with Into the Storm, because the footage that is shot is never supposedly found because it's never lost. It's just a movie that's done in the style of a found footage film. So it's not one of those kind of movies.
Surely, though.
I know, but you would actually look at the two words found footage, so that would indicate that it was found, and it's never found. And so it's shot on cameras, a shaky cam kind of style, and people documenting what's happening. And so does that add to the film? To be honest, no, it doesn't. It actually distracts from the movie because it opens up so many plot holes that you're trying to think to yourself, when a camera gets sucked up into a tornado, where did they get the footage from? How were you able to actually see it? So it just throws up too many plot holes by doing a movie like that. And I can see that the studio thought, we've got a good idea by adding more impact to the movie and by adding more character, shooting it properly from the viewpoint of the people who will get involved in this, then it'll add that impact. And it doesn't. The only way you can see it classing it sort of as found footage is from the two comedy guys. The two guys who were shooting it from their viewpoint of view to put it onto YouTube, because at the end of the movie, they've got their camera still. So you can get the footage, which, by the way, that camera cannot hold that amount of footage. Because I work with technology with that kind of stuff, and there's no way, because it's using a Flip HD camera, that camera can hold that amount of footage. The maximum can hold is 60 minutes without changing the SD card. So no way can it hold that much footage. And considering the amount that the cameras go through, get battered, which, by the way, there's a film which I'm going to review in the DVD section, which there is a ridiculous thing that happens to one of the cameras in it, and you think to yourself, if that can happen to the camera in that movie, then this one, it's you can understand why it's happened to that. So It's nothing like Twister. Twister's a much more coherent, much more better movie. This is more messy. It's boring, to be honest. I was bored throughout the film, considering that it is about a huge, massive, giant twister. You would expect some entertainment. And you don't get that, because the characters are wooden. They are very wooden. There is nothing for you to latch onto the characters, even though there's a few little bits and bobs where it tries to tug at your heartstrings a little bit, but it doesn't work. And the love interest in the movie between two of the characters, again, doesn't work. And when they get trapped into an old abandoned building, it's just there because they thought, we haven't got anything else to try and keep them there. So the film itself is not bad, but it's just very below par.
I think you're getting a bit too caught up on the technical aspects of it, but we'll leave that aside, because I have to say, not entirely, but I do disagree with you on a lot of it. I get, admittedly, the first 45 minutes to an hour of the film are pretty awful at certain points. Very awful writing in some cases. Some of the points, the dialogue is really so cheesy and so bad. And there's a couple of sequences where you just kind of like, come on, fast forward, get on with it, get to the next bit. But I have to admit, especially the last half hour, a big action sort of set piece there was going on. I got to admit, and I went into this kind of thinking this is going to be absolutely rubbish. I had really low expectations for it, but I really enjoyed, especially that last half hour. I really got into it. I thought it was really atmospheric. I thought the sound was great in it. I agree, the whole thing of it is technically a found footage, but it's not, because there's shots in it that aren't found footage. There's shots in it which are cinematic, and they're shot with, you can tell they're shot with like some kind of a crane. There's bits in it as well where there wouldn't be somebody there filming though, because the people are doing something, and there's no way someone would be standing there holding a camera at the time. And there's sequences in it where you're kind of going, how is this found footage? How is this shot like that? That can't be done. But overall, I went into it with lower expectations. I thought it was going to be terrible. Fair enough, there were elements in it, parts of it that were terrible, but I enjoyed it, and I came out at the end, I was like, you know what, I enjoyed it, I had fun. It's a 90-minute film, it's a 90-minute roller coaster film that knows what it is, tries to take itself a little bit too seriously, but has some sequences in it which are genuinely thrilling, and I thought, well done, enjoyed it, quite fun.
In my opinion, it's a 90-minute roller coaster movie where all you're going is up, and you're waiting for that dip to come, but it never happens. You just, all of a sudden, when you get to the top, the roller coaster just stops, and you're asked to get off and walk down. That's how it felt like to me. It was trying to build up stuff and to make it exciting. It never ever got exciting, and it's the technicalities, in my opinion, that shows the huge, massive plot holes. So I went in there with really low expectations, like yourself, and it met my low expectations. It never got above them.
Okay, well. I guess we'll see. I'm curious to see what you'd make of What If, because this is a film that's a small drama that's directed by Michael Dowles. It stars Daniel Radcliffe as Wallace, who we're introduced at the start of the film. He's at a party. Things are just sort of going there. He's kind of standing out away from everyone else. He's messing around with things on a fridge magnets that make up sentences, and he meets a character of Chantry, played by Zoe Kazdan, who the two of them sort of hit things off. They do really well, have a good night, and he then ends up sort of walking her home. Here's a clip.
So, I've been with Ben for 5 years, and, I totally get that guys don't want to hang out with the girl with the boyfriend. But it just sucks, It just, makes you feel like the only thing that's interesting about you is how you look with your clothes off. I mean, it should be easier to make friends if you have a boyfriend because there's no confusion.
So is that it? That's your big pitch to be my friend? That was terrible.
Yeah, I know. I practice in the mirror and...
Anyway.
Friends?
Yeah, why not?
Alright.
Friends. Is this always how you make friends? Like it's a business deal?
Yeah, actually, it's just my style.
Okay, it's quite unnerving, but it's good.
So, this is the thing then, that obviously they become friends, even though she's already got a boyfriend. They start hanging out and things going on. It's always this whole thing of the relationship between them. Is there, isn't there, will they, won't they? And there's all this thing going on at the same time with her boyfriend is there. There's this thing of the thing with her boyfriend, and he's then getting a job somewhere else in another country, so there's all that going on as well. And it's kind of fairly predictable schlick that you get from this kind of thing. There's nothing particularly outstanding or original from it. It's kind of taken from this bit from this film, this bit from this film. There's lots of bits in it. It is entertaining for the most part. It doesn't hang around too long because it is only an hour and 40 minutes long, but it does feel as if it's a little stale very early on. You start having these moments where you're going, I've seen this before. It's not adding anything new to it. The trailer has showed a couple of funny moments in it, but it's not really a funny comedy film. It is a drama romance film which has comedy moments in it, but it's not a laugh a minute crowd inducing, humorous film. It's a light-hearted drama which has romantic elements in it and a couple of laughs. So if you go into it expecting that's what you'll get. If you go into it hoping you're going to get a really good funny laugh a minute, hour and a half, you're going to be sorely disappointed, as I was, and majority of the people in the audience when I saw this. And it's okay, but it's not really up to spec.
For me, it seems like it's a week where the theatrical releases are just okay at best. I hate those kind of weeks, though. It would be nice to have a standout movie.
It would, but we don't.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't. Right, that's it for the cinema section of the show. We'll be back in a moment where Andrew will be taking over. Finally, I can shut up for a few minutes with the home release section.
The From Page to Screen movie cast. So they have 9 times out of 10 they have to send it back to you unopened or just throw it in the garbage can.
Things don't always look exactly as we envision our life to look, but sometimes it works out and turns out even better.
Gregor Fisher, his bacon number is 2 because he was appeared with January Jones in Love Actually, and January Jones and Kevin Bacon appeared in X-Men First Class together.
I've got to say, the very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas, now that just makes me want to rush out.
It's about the acting, about the writing. That's really what theatre is for me.
Probably had more names than Prince or whatever. Never mind, there's a joke for the oldies. It'd be like, who's Prince? Who's he? I'd just like to see Mr. Freeze hiring his bad guys going, right, okay, so you're a psycho, right, can you ice skate? Head over to iTunes, Spreaker and Stitcher and put in the search box From Page to Screen.
And we are back with this week's home releases on the show, which include a look at the DVD and Blu-ray top 10 and then these movies.
Animated adventure telling the story for the umpteenth time with Tarzan. Wally Pfister's directorial debut with science fiction film Transcendence, with a small movie with Tom Hardy in called Locke, Arthur and Mike, and a found footage movie with Alien Abduction.
Is it truly a found footage movie?
It is, but I will actually say this now. I will spoil the ending of the film. I know you don't like that, but it needs to actually be spoiled, but it's not technically properly spoiling the ending of the movie. I'll get into that, though, when I get onto the film.
Okay, if you're listening to us live, you can join us in chat in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, the little green speaker button. Click on that, you'll be able to interact with us as we go into the DVD and Blu-ray top 10, starting at number 10 with Mrs. Doubtfire.
It's in there because of the passing of Robin Williams. I'm surprised that it's only at 10, considering that it should have been much more higher. The thing is, though, did you see what some people were charging for some of Robin Williams' films on eBay the day after he passed away?
The vultures, basically. People getting
it was ridiculous. People were putting copies of Mrs. Doubtfire on eBay for like £150. That's ridiculous. That and
the only
so
reason I can think this is maybe not higher up is because of the fact of that how many people already have it.
True. I'm surprised though. I looked over the entirety of the top 40, and this was the only Robin Williams film in there. So that surprised me more. But I think it should have been slightly more higher. Knock the number 6 film out of the top 10, and that should have replaced it.
Number 9 is The Raid 2,
which is the best martial arts film of this year. That's simple. It's very long. I agree with you on the fact that it should have been shorter. Definitely much shorter than what it is, because it clocks in nearly 2.5 hours. But it involves one of the best martial arts set pieces that I've ever seen in a film.
Yeah.
So,
talking of overlong, it's Noah at number 8.
We keep saying this, but the last 45 minutes is the best thing about the film.
Well, no, not the 45 minutes in the middle. The last half hour is just boring.
No, the last 45 minutes is the best thing about the film.
No. New entry at number 7 for The Quiet Ones.
It's Hammer, but not
It's
to
Hammer,
Hammer's
but not
standards.
as we know it. Go on, say it.
No, I didn't want to go down there. It's Hammer, but not to their good high standards, considering after they came back, they started off with Whimper with The Resident, and it seems to be this is bookending the Whimper section. Because, yeah, the Quiet Ones, it's got a few decent ideas, and Jared Harris is a really good actor. It's just the character that he plays in the movie is a bit boring, to be honest, and the film itself is a bit boring. I was expecting much better than what was produced.
Is that number 6 movie you were talking about still hanging around, Rio 2?
Yeah, this should have been where Mrs. Doubtfire should have been, and Rio 2 should have been at number 10. Because Rio 2 has got good animation, just boring storyline.
A new entry for The Love Punch at number 5.
Not seen it.
You've not seen it, yeah. I want to see what you think about this, because to be honest, I thought it was damn awful. Just not that it's a damn awful story or anything, because it's not a badly written film. It's not especially badly directed. It's bad because they cast the completely wrong people in it. It's the kind of thing that should have had Steve Martin in it and not Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan and Emma Thompson are just completely out of their zone, just because it's one of these stupid, weird comedies which just did not fit them at all. Horribly miscast. Still another one still hanging around there. Been in there now for 21 weeks. At number 4, Frozen.
21 weeks.
Yeah.
God, that's a long time. It's sort of like putting the Bryan Adams song that he did for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves to shame.
Yeah, how many weeks was that?
16 weeks at number 1.
Is that all? I thought it was longer than that.
No, it's 16 weeks at number 1. It was in the top 40 for around about 40 weeks or something.
Oh, those are the days. And number 3 is the Lego Movie.
Yeah, again, another film which we've said absolutely everything we can about it. I'm not saying that word.
Say it.
Nope.
Say it.
Not going to happen.
Say it. Yes,
Never going to happen. Sequel coming out in 2016, I think it is. That's when the first one is. Ninjago spin-offs happening, and then another 2 films in 2017.
Say it.
No.
Number 2's movie dropping down from the top spot, Divergent.
Which I really like, Divergent. It's a good stepping stone onto the next film, which I forgot what it's called. It's not Divergent 2 or anything. It's got a different name to Divergent.
Is it not Insurgent or something like that?
It's something like Insurgent, yeah. But it's a good stepping stone on that. Unlike with... I sort of like, in a way, agree with you the way the last Hunger Games film ended, that you have to wait for the next movie because it properly leads into that, and it's slightly annoying when a movie does that. Divergent doesn't do that. So it sort of like gives you a tiny little morsel about what might happen in the sequel. So I'm actually quite looking forward to the sequel now, even though I was reluctant to watch Divergent.
Yeah, I think it's a film that's been very overlooked by a lot of people. I think it's very, very well done, and I really enjoyed it. And I said more than the Hunger Games. Say it.
No.
So the new number 1 movie, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
No surprise there. You think it's the best Marvel film. I think it's the 3rd best Marvel film. That's still high praise coming from me, considering that the rest of the Marvel films are a bit boring. Especially the Iron Man series. In my opinion, the Iron Man series peaked at the first one. This one I like the way the storyline flowed. It has a very good flow to it. It isn't just reliant on having a big action set piece at the start and a big action set piece at the end, and that's it. It has proper coherence in the central section, which that's what was lacking from a lot of the Marvel films, in my opinion. I still think Avengers Assemble, and we have to use Avengers Assemble over here, even though it'll be nice to actually call it Avengers Age of Ultron, not Avengers Assemble Ages of Ultron.
They'll probably change the title when it comes here as well.
Probably, yeah. But Guardians of the Galaxy is by far the best Marvel film, in my opinion. But this is still a really well-rounded Marvel film.
Yeah. So that's your UK DVD and Blu-ray top 10. Let's go straight into our first review on DVD this evening.
Yep, no clip for Tarzan. You should be glad that we don't have a clip for it. It's directed by Reinhard Klaus, and it's done by Constantine Films, who were involved with the Resident Evil series. This is a studio that's inside Sony Pictures, the same kind of Sony Pictures who has an animation side to it, and who also did the Smurfs, which after watching this film you should be glad you should actually go out and watch the Smurfs, to be honest. But yeah, it follows exactly the same Tarzan mythology that you know from what's the name of the writer of the Tarzan stories?
Edgar Rice Burroughs, isn't it?
Yes, Edgar Rice Burroughs. So even though it starts 60 million years in the past, when in the area of the dinosaurs, that's the way his book is. His book is like that. So it starts that, it involves a meteorite, which has this special ability kind of thing, and then it fast forwards straight into present day, and it involves the Greystoke family. John Greystoke, we know about an incident that happened with him trying to investigate it, because supposedly this thing is able to provide enough power, rather than using oil or any other kind of means for power. This can actually provide enough power. Unfortunately, the helicopter that has the Greystoke family in crashes. The only survivor is the young son. He ends off getting raised by the jungle and becomes Tarzan. Then one day, years past, he discovers this group of people who are wanting to get this stuff for themselves. He sees this woman, he sort of like latches onto her. Another few years fast forwards, and she comes back to the jungle after this person who's taken over from the Greystoke family. He's decided to wanton the power for himself. So he's got a lot of money, and it just boils down to that greed. It just boils down to greed and Tarzan trying to stop them. Yeah, the best thing that can be said about this movie, there is one scene in the film which you see Tarzan standing in his treehouse. He looks across to a vista. You see a beautiful picture for about 2 seconds, and then you see him cuddle into a gorilla. That's it. Honestly, that the animation is horrid. It really is horrid. Apart from some nice little water animation in the film itself, it straddles a line between being realistic, so something you would have seen in films like Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, and being animation in what you would normally see in today's kind of animated movies. Now, Final Fantasy Spirits Within was not liked by a lot of people. I quite liked that film, and
I didn't mind that either, yeah.
The big thing about that movie was its technology that it used to create the lifelike characters. Yeah, that seems to me that they've nicked a lot of stuff from that and melded together with present-day animation. And it's horrid. It's really hard to actually watch the film and not be distracted about how the character animation, how bad it is. It's really distracted. Their noses are just huge. They've got satellite dishes on their faces. They have no emotions in it at all. I'm going back to the actress Kristen Stewart. She would suit this film perfect. She wouldn't even need to be animated. She would just instantly be thrown in the film and suit it perfectly. The storyline is terrible. The voiceovers is even worse. Ken Lotsu plays the adult Tarzan in the movie. He actually does the Tarzan thing. I'm not doing it now because I've got a cold and I would literally kill my voice. He does that. That's the best piece of dialogue in the entirety of the movie, because it's so clunky that even a 2-year-old would laugh at it, at how bad it is.
I was in the cinema. I think there were even maybe some 2-year-olds. None of them laughed.
No, I would actually say they would laugh at how bad the dialogue is rather than how funny it is. A baby, if it had any, a 2-week-old baby, if it had any knowledge of what's going around it, would look up at the screen, point and go, "That's ridiculous." That's how bad this movie is. This started the wave of really bad kids films. No kids film this year has actually sunk down to the level of Tarzan. It's just horrendous. It is. I can't believe that this movie got a theatrical release.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing movies like Planes, Fire and Rescue. I'll gladly go and see that 5 times in a row than sit down and watch this again. I know you hated the film. I'm guessing it's probably going to be in your top 10 worst of the year.
Oh, yeah.
This is a movie.
It's atrociously bad, especially not only in this year. We've had terrible list of animation films, but in the last decade there are animated films that are 10 years old that are better than the animation in this. And I'm not talking about just handheld ones. I'm talking about animated ones, computer animated ones, which would put this to shame.
I'm guessing, because you've seen the film, but I haven't. I'm guessing it's on par with how bad Top Cat was. Top Cat the movie.
Well, Top Cat. The thing is with Top Cat was done in an old style. so it was 2D done in that. It was done in that animation. I mean, the animation in Top Cat completely puts this to shame, but it's not the same kind of thing. It's different, but it's done to match the original Top Cat animations. This is just horrible. I mean, there's the best thing. I mean, I honestly sat there watching it when I saw it at the cinema, and I kind of laughed and think of the seriously, this is considered, you know, top level animation. There's like a bird that flies in it. It doesn't really fly. It just kind of glides. It doesn't seem to even sort of flap its wings or anything, or have any kind of gravity to it or weight to it, which is just awful.
All I'll say is that honestly, this is true. The special effects in the film Birdemic and in Sharknado are better than the animation in Tarzan.
I haven't seen them, but I can't imagine that's a false statement.
Just do me one little favour once we finish the show tonight. Just watch the trailer for either Birdemic or the sequel, Birdemic 2, and you will probably actually send me a message saying, I agree.
Okay, so I'm going to go on to Transcendence, which is the big film, one of the big films of the year, directed by Wally Pfister as his first directorial job after having done director of photography and cinematography on things like the Dark Knight trilogy for Christopher Nolan. Here he's branching out on his own, directing a movie that's written by Jack Paglen, stars Johnny Depp as Will Castor, the man who is one of a whole bunch of people around the world working on creating the world's first artificial intelligence. He and his wife Evelyn, played by Rebecca Hall, are working on this. Everything seems to be going sort of fine. He's at a couple of things like the TED meetings. He sort of holds one of these, and all these kinds of things seem to be going well. Then there is a sort of an independent sort of terrorism group that strikes out at all of these labs that are working on artificial intelligence, attacking people who work on it. Will is shot with a bullet which it turns out is poisonous because it's been soaked in radiation iodine that's going to kill him, sort of a slow death. So what's decided is between him and Evelyn is they're going to do is, but there's no way to save him unless they can upload his consciousness to a computer, which they do against sort of the advice of sort of their friends and people, included like Max, played by Paul Bettany, who kind of cautions against this. After a little while, they build up this sort of after Will's virtual self is sort of released onto the internet and starts to sort of make money, sets up this location where they build a sort of a site where they can sort of really work on things and start advancing technology and such. And what they decide to do then is open it and bring in other friends such as Joseph, played by Morgan Freeman. Here's a clip.
The facility is 5 stories down so that we can control the temperature in the lab.
Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Jesus Christ.
Will? You surprised to see me, Joseph?
That depends.
On what?
Can you prove you're self-aware?
That's a difficult question, Dr. Tiger. Can you prove that you are?
So, here's the thing with Transcendence. It's kind of like one of these films where someone has been basically given the reins and let loose to basically, without someone going, hang on a minute, what about this, what about this, what about this? And so basically it starts off with a very, very slow build. It has these sort of things happen, and then it kind of starts to almost try and build up momentum, but it doesn't ever really get going. It kind of gets to it, starts and stops. And the problem is that it's a 2-hour film, but it really feels as if it's kind of missing something. That there should be more to it. And the problem is that it's like you put a 1-hour film into a bucket that should be 2 hours. If you get that analogy or not, I don't know. But it just feels if there's not much here. It feels... I mean, I saw it at the cinema. I didn't think it was great then. I thought it had lots of problems. Second viewing around, it's got the same problems, but not as evident. But it's still there. And it kind of has this problem with the narrative where it's like it doesn't know... It gets to one of these rooms where there's a door and there's 5 doors. Which one do we go through? And instead of going, I'm going to go that one, it goes... Well, let's have a look in this one and see. Or let's have a look in this one and see. Let's have a look. And it spends the rest of its time dawdling over instead of going, we're doing this. And that's kind of like a good way of describing the entire film. It doesn't really have a direction, a path of direction where it wants to go. So it just ends up meandering and kind of tumbling over itself. And it kind of has missing gaps of narration, I think. And I think it really needs to be condensed down and edited and stripped a bit to make it an hour and a half. And it would have been a much better film.
It felt like to me that Wally Pfister, he's worked on a lot of special effects and stuff like that. He was the DP to Christopher Nolan on a lot of Christopher Nolan's films. And it just felt like he watched Christopher Nolan the way he directed and thought to himself, I can do that. He can't do that, though. It's not as easy as you thinking that you can do that, even though you've worked in the DP on these big, massive movies. You might have ideas of how... a special effect would work in a scene, not how a scene could be constructed. And he's got some really interesting ideas. The idea of transcendence and somebody putting themselves into a computer is an interesting idea. It just didn't seem he was able to direct that idea well. Paul Bettany's pretty decent. He plays a scientist and he knows how to play these kind of roles. I think Johnny Depp has got a very simple character to play because he doesn't have very much to do with his character. At least he's not as annoying as he's doing a Jack Sparrow thing. He's not doing that, which is a good thing to see him not doing that. But it just felt like Wally Pfister felt like with him working with somebody like Nolan, he can take the ideas that he's seen the way Nolan's directed the movies and put it into a film with his ideas when he actually needs somebody as a director of Christopher Nolan's stature to help him out. He needs somebody to... I think Nolan, if he was on the film as a producer and sort of like oversaw and gave him guidance on how we should have constructed the film together, it might have been a more coherent, better film than what it turned out to be.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of, like I said, it's a bit directionless. So
yeah,
it needed that guidance to really help it sort of find its true course.
It's like when directors they sit down and come up with ideas. The best example I can give is Guillermo del Toro. When he's coming up with ideas for the films that he's doing, he brings out a sketchbook and he sketches some characters and designs and things like that he can put into the film. But del Toro is able to actually stitch those things together. Wally Pfister, by the sound of things, sat down and did exactly the same process, couldn't find the thread to actually interleave between it all to make it a structured film, rather than just an idea film.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher Nolan's cast is credited as an executive producer, but he really needed to be a producer and someone who actually was sort of throughout the production actually producing and actually influencing the director and helping him, not sort of just going, here's a blank check.
It can only help Wally Pfister in the end, because then he can look back at the film and see... I can hope that he can look back at the film and think to himself he didn't structure it very well, and he can learn with his next movie and his movie after that. It can actually only help him, and so hopefully his next movie will have a proper, fully feel to it, rather than just something that's fragmented.
Yeah. So, next movie. Talking of next films...
I've got the simple movies this week, haven't I? Which is a good thing, because Locke is a very simple premise. It's directed by Stephen Knight, and the only actor you see on screen is Tom Hardy. There's other actors in the film, but they're only there voice-wise by phone calls, because you've got Olivia Colman and Andrew Scott in the movie. And Tom Hardy plays this... It's set the day before a huge, massive thing is going to happen where this concrete stuff is going to get poured, and it's the biggest thing of that kind that's happening in Europe. And unfortunately, he's decided to not be there. He's decided to head down to London, where a person who he had a one-night stand with, voiced by Olivia Colman, is about to give birth to his child. And during his journey from where he is, in, I think it's Scotland, isn't it?
I think it's somewhere in Scotland or Newcastle he's supposed to be. I can't remember entirely.
It's somewhere in the north anyway, and so during his tour of journey, everything is told via phone calls, and so it's phone calls to the person who's has to actually be there on the site to get this concrete delivered so everything can go well. It's phone calls to his family. Actually, I'll play you the clip now because this clip sets up a phone call with his son.
Hello?
Eddie, it's your dad. Is your mother there?
No, she's not back from the shops yet. She's getting that German beer that you like for the match.
Okay, listen, I won't be back for that.
What?
Something's come up. I can't get out of it.
I'm wearing the shirt. Mum's getting sausages. Oh, yeah, and guess what? She's wearing the shirt as well. Oh, Dad, it's so embarrassing. Yeah, what did you say about coming home?
I won't be back for the match. I'll have to listen to it on the radio.
Dad, you said you'd be back. It's rubbish on the radio. Mum's doing sausages and all.
Is your brother there?
Yeah, do you want a word?
No. Can you just tell your mother to call me when she gets back? Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I love you.
What?
It's okay. You know what? Just get her to call me when she gets back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, all right. Bye, Dad.
And so, as I've also said, phone calls which involves Olivia Colman's character and the incidents that happened during this journey from the site to the hospital. That's it. To be honest, that is the premise of the film itself. It's a very simple premise, and it needs to land on the shoulders of the one actor Tom Hardy. It is one of those one actor films. There's some other films like Buried, which had Ryan Reynolds in the movie, where he's in a coffin itself, and it's sort of like there's another movie with Stephen Dorff in it called Break, where he's trapped into the inner trunk of a car. And so these one actor premise movies work. With this one, unfortunately for me, it didn't. Because I found that the constant phone calls got right on my nerves. The amount of times the phone rings in this movie is stupid. I know it seems like a really stupid thing to be annoyed at, but he leaves it until it's rung like 10 times before he picks up the phone. And after it rang twice, I was constantly saying, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. I got Sheldon syndrome from The Big Bang Theory. It was like, there is an episode of The Big Bang Theory where Leonard gets a phone call and Sheldon's constantly going, pick up the phone. And I was constantly going, while watching this movie, answer the phone. Answer your phone. Answer your phone. And it was getting so much on my nerves, I was starting to hate the film. I like the film because of how brilliant Tom Hardy handles his character and the fact that he handles it well with him just being the one actor in the movie on his shoulders. It is a hard thing to do that, and so you give him a pat on the back for that. I can't give a pat on the back for the rest of the film because it grated on me so much that I wasn't interested in the story. I wasn't interested in the fact that he could lose his job involved in this site, and the fact he's going down to London to be with this woman who he had a one-night stand with. I wasn't interested in his relationship with his wife and his kids that could end with what he's actually doing. I wasn't interested in him ultimately, maybe he's meeting the baby and the things that happen during childbirth and the fact that he can't be there when the baby's being born. I lost interest in that because of the phone thing got on my nerves.
I didn't find it that much annoying. I kind of got into it and I saw it at the cinema. I haven't seen it since on DVD, but I saw it at the cinema and I found it quite sort of... It was a real good performance piece and I found that it worked for that, and I thought Tom Hardy held the screen rather quite well.
If you take out the phone calls in the film, the phone ringing, not the calls themselves, the film would have been 20 minutes. That's a slight over exaggerating it a little bit, because it would have been 21 minutes in that case. But yeah, honestly, the amount of that, I can't get it out of my brain, the fact that the director just left it so long for him to actually answer the goddamn phone.
Well, I think it was kind of intentional on the character's part.
And he also did another slight distraction for me was the soliloquies that he was doing. When he was talking to himself
accent,
like
yeah.
he was talking to the audience. And that just... I was thinking to myself, is there going to be a twist when there's somebody in the car? Because he was looking into the mirror and the camera was actually focusing on the mirror in the car when he was doing these. And I was thinking, is there a twist going to be at the end where somebody is in the car, like the foreman at the site where he's coming from, or a member of his family, or a twist which involves something else and you see the car crash or something? It's just, I was expecting something like that to happen and it didn't. That put me off as well. Very off-putting film.
Okay, I'm going to go on to the last film of the week, which is Arthur.
Not for you anyway.
Yeah.
I've got one more.
Oh, you have, yeah, sorry. My last film of the week. Arthur and Mike. This was also released quite a while ago, actually, a couple of years ago in America under the name Arthur Newman, and it was advertised here under that, but it got a very quick, small release earlier in the year in the cinema under this new title. It stars Colin Firth as Wallace, who is a man who lives his sort of boring life. He really hates his life. He lives with his girlfriend, played by Anne Heche. The two of them are together, but it's kind of everything's boring and depressing. So he decides he's going to kind of look at doing something about that, including getting a fake ID under a completely different name. Here's a clip.
Everything ready? 3,000. That's discussed.
The exact name you asked for.
Not a real... I mean, these numbers belong to a real human being.
Arthur J. Newman, born Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1964. Died Visalia, California, 2010. A real human being. Good luck, Mr. Newman.
So he decides that what he's going to do then is he fakes his own death by setting up a tent on a beach. We're leaving his ID and things like that there. His family, his ex-wife and his teen son believe him to be dead. He then goes on the road heading towards a location where he's going to sort of look at taking up this job he's potentially been offered under this fake name. Along the way, though, he bumps into a character of Mike, played by Emily Blunt, who is kind of a pickpocket. The two of them kind of find this weird thing of them running from sort of their pasts and lying about themselves and such, and end up entering in sort of this weird kind of relationship where they're helping each other but also falling in love in a weird way, while they start doing these weird things like seeing people and out in the street and sort of seeing them taking on sort of personas of them and going sort of breaking into their houses and living their lives for a day sort of thing. Here's the thing with the film, unfortunately, it is incredibly boring, and I say that it takes a lot for a film to honestly boring, but I honestly sat there watching this and I was wondering, first of all, how Colin Firth and Emily Blunt could be signed up to this. It has moments in it where honestly, I was kind of sitting there going, come on, get on with it, do something, don't just do this, and it just gets boring. And the thing about it is that you have these characters that are running away from a boring life to try and be exciting and have an exciting life and do something different and be exciting, and yet they end up being boring again and being possibly even more boring and going things that are boring and should be exciting and they're not. And I just kind of sat there almost ready to start pulling my hair out at just how groan-inducing this film was. It's not badly directed or anything like that. It's just horribly written in that not a lot happens. Even when the characters start talking about real things in their past and such, it kind of gets to a point where you just don't care because you've kind of switched off. You've lost interest, and that's the problem. There's also this thing going on. Very weird thing where the character played by Anne Heche is back in the house when she thinks that Wallace is dead, and his son comes over and there's this weird kind of almost very creepy kind of flirting and flaunting between the two of them, and it's kind of like it's wrong. It just feels such an uncomfortable scene in particular. It's very, very off-putting as a film to watch it, and so the whole thing is just really surprisingly disappointing. I mean, it's not surprisingly disappointing as the fact that, well, it didn't get a very big cinema release. Now I know why. It's just boring and terribly put together and awful. It's not badly directed, just badly done.
Right, final film then. It's the bottom of the basement movie of the week thing. Is Alien Abduction. Now, this is a found footage film, and I'll go into it why it's a found footage film in a moment. It's directed by Matty Beckerman, and it centres around the Morris family, who are just coming back from holiday. They're driving, as usual, to get back home, and unfortunately, paranormal incidents happen where they first get attacked by these birds, which seem to bombard their car out of the sky. They stop off at a tunnel thinking that they can try to escape, where the tunnel is being blocked off by loads of cars. They then get seconded by this alien-looking figure, and they run to this abandoned building, which they think it is abandoned. However, it's actually the house of this redneck guy, and this redneck guy tries to help them out, but there is something in the woods, which is alien. Yeah.
That's it.
Now, yeah, the reason why this is a found footage film, because, as I said at the start of the show, I will spoil the end just slightly. There is a scene right at the end of the film where something's happened to the family, and it's absolutely, completely ridiculous, and you see a camera fall from outside of the Earth's atmosphere into the Earth itself without getting completely destroyed. You would have thought that it would have destroyed once it reached our ozone layer, and it crashed. It crash lands on Earth, and then it gets picked up by some scientists with only a crack on the camera, and the footage still completely 100% intact. That's how this is a found footage film. It is honestly. It decides to give away the alien premise of the movie in the first 2 minutes, because unlike with the movie where it builds up, where you just see little hints of what could be attacking them, it goes, there's an alien, that's what's going to attack you through the rest of the film. So it blows its interesting idea straight away, and it tries to make the film scary, and it doesn't. It makes it nauseating, to be honest, because the problem with found footage films is the fact that the camera shakes a lot. It bounces around. And if you can get along with that during the movie, if the movie's interesting, you can sort of like, yeah, fine, you can get away with that. Not when it uses things that you've seen in the Blair Witch Project, where a camera goes up to somebody and snot is dripping from their nose, and they go, I'm sorry, Dad, I love you, and crying and all that stuff. Yeah, that's really annoying now, and it's been done to death. Everything in this movie's been done to death. It's just the ending, which is ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. It's terrible, the film. It's just terrible.
It's really that bad?
Yeah, it is. It's that bad.
Okay, so that's the worst film of the week. Before we're going to go into see what our best movies of the week are going to be, let's have a look at our TV movies of the week.
That's the word week. Just said a lot. Just one quick thing about Alien Abduction. I know Kat is with you at the moment. If she is interested in that, slap her across the face with a towel or something.
I'm not going to do that.
Just give her just go, no. If she picks it up, knock it out of her hand. No.
I'll have to see what you said about that. TV movie of the week. Shall I do mine, or do you want to do yours? Because you've got a couple.
You do yours.
Cheated.
I know.
Okay. Well,
one is a cheating.
Mine is I don't think it's the premiere of it, but it's not been shown for a little while. I think it was shown once on Channel 4, and this is the first time it's been shown on Film 4. Wednesday, 27th of August at 9 p.m. X-Men First Class, which is the kind of the first prequel of the X-Men films, which is kind of like the prequel, the direct prequel to X-Men Days of Future Past, which is out in the cinema at the moment, still in a couple of places. So maybe catch that if you're not sure, check it out, and then be ready for X-Men Days of Future Past, which will probably be out on DVD in the next few weeks.
Yep, and I'll go with my cheaty one. My cheaty one is on the Horror Channel. Now I know not everybody can actually get hold of the Horror Channel, but if you've got FreeSat or Sky or Virgin Media, you can get hold of the Horror Channel. Yep. So there is ways of getting hold of the film. It's Cube, because I think it's Vincenzo Natali at his best. That's his best film that he's made, because Splice is an interesting idea, but there is a few bits and bobs in that movie which is, questionable.
I just think, isn't that about 13 years old now as well?
It is read about that. Haunter was a movie that nobody saw. It was released in one cinema. It then went to DVD and nobody watched it. It's got Abigail Breslin in it, and again, it's got interesting premise, but never. It's just too muddled in itself. The sequels to Cube 2 and then Cube 0, it's not as good as the first one. And Cube is a really very strange film. So that's on the Horror Channel on Sunday the 31st at 9 p.m. And
what's
the movie?
Because you said you had 2.
Yeah, the movie that I've chosen, which isn't cheating, is on Film 4 on Wednesday the 27th at 11:35, and it's the Greek film Dogtooth.
Oh, so it's after X-Men then?
Yeah, you need to have a strong kind of stomach to watch Dogtooth, because it is a really harrowing kind of movie. It's just centres around a Greek family and the way the father treats the kids and segregates them off from the world. It's a hard watch, but it's a really, really good film. It's in subtitles because it's a Greek movie, but I definitely highly recommend Dogtooth and Cube.
Excellent. So, movie of the week.
Lucy.
I was actually going to say as well, Lucy. I think the same, because it is very. I do like it. Intelligent sci-fi. I just go into it with an open mind. Don't expect it to be action, because it's not. It's science fiction.
Yeah, it's best of the rest of the stuff that I watched. So, because I saw Lucy and I saw Into the Storm and I saw Deliver Us from Evil at the cinema. I actually saw Deliver Us from Evil and went straight in to see Lucy straight after it. And I thought Lucy was the strongest out of the 3 that I saw.
Yeah, though I think you are rather harsh on Into the Storm.
No, it's just.
Okay. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining us live if you have. If not, thank you for downloading and listening to us on the podcast. You can always check for updates on the show. We'll be found available on www.mondaymovieshow.co.uk, where there will be details up about next week's show, which will be happening on a Sunday, because they will not be available on the Monday. I think we already have discussed that previously, but I just thought I'd throw it out there.
About a minute ago via you sent me a message on Skype, but that's not discussing it.
I did mention it a while ago, but then I've just thought I better tell you and make sure as well. You can find us, as Stuart said at the beginning of the show, you can find us on Twitter at Monday Movie Show. Stuart can be found at Cryptic Tadpole. I can be found at AHDVD. You can also find us on Facebook.com/Monday Movie Show. And as I say, mondaymovieshow.co.uk. So
one quick thing before people disappear. It's just a shout out. If anybody happens to know anywhere that sells Carvel, let me know on Twitter at Cryptic Tadpole. I've had a look online and it seems to be it's discontinued. Which, if it is, that's really annoying.
But on the other hand, Stuart can have his cold for another week and be back next week with the situation.
Send me Carvel. Just send me lots of Carvel. That's what I want.
Yeah. Quick shout outs, as we always do. Followingthenerd.com, from page2screen.com with the number 2 instead of TO in the middle. And also our charity we do recommend, Seren Foundation, which is SEREN foundation.org.uk. So next week, as I say, will be on a Sunday. Until then, we're going to leave you with a clip from an upcoming comedy film with Cameron Diaz in it, which is Sex Tape. So we will see you next Sunday. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey.
Hey, babe.
Hi.
Where are the kids?
They're my mom's.
Oh, they are? I thought that we were going to go down to... Wow! Oh, hi. Wow. Look at you.
Too much.
No, it's great.
I was thinking...
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
The kids, how long are they...
They're sleeping over.
Yes!
Because I was thinking that... maybe we could celebrate. Just the 2 of us.
I get it. That's a great idea. This is like the best idea you've ever had. You look amazing. Do you own these underwear?
Mm-hmm.
Because those, I've never seen those before.
Come on.
This is so exciting. I'm so excited right now.